Hey, this is Alex with the Unbiased Trailblazer podcast. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at Unbiased Blazers. There's a link in our bio for our Discord server where you can join in on the discussions, give us your takes, give us comments, or just join in on a podcast. Now, let's get to the show. Rip City, baby.
Three, two, one,
Zero.
zero.
Liftoff and the clock has started.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to extremely special episode of Unbiased Trailblazers. Today, we have a special guest joining us, someone who's been covering the Blazers for at least over 20 years, I would say, right?
24 years.
24 years. And we're a big respected member of the Blazers media, and we're extremely lucky to have him here. So I just want to welcome Jason Quick of The Athletic. We're big fans of your work. We're always looking forward to the articles that you push out and are always giving us like a deeper, more personal understanding of the players that are there. And we do appreciate it a lot because we see them on TV, but just your articles bring more to them than just the basketball side of things. So we really look forward to all the articles that you do every day. And once again, I just want to thank you for being here, taking time out of your busy day. I know, basketball is about to start, so we're all really excited. So just want to say thanks for joining. And Fawad, if you want to go ahead and start off with the first question, go for it.
Sure, got it. So first off, we want to know how you got into like the reporting and journalism field and how you got to work with the Blazers specifically. So just kind of walk us through your story.
A trip down memory lane, huh? First of all, I want to thank you guys for having me on and for all those nice words. It means something to me when I hear readers getting something from what I'm writing, because I do put a lot of effort into it, and I care about my craft, and I take this job seriously. It's a privilege that I think a lot of people would like to have, the access and kind of the front row seat to see how each season unfolds. So I don't take that lightly. So I appreciate when I hear feedback from people that they are enjoying my articles and stuff. It makes it worth it. But to get to your question, I knew I wanted to be a writer really early, like 8th grade early. I was really involved in athletics, but I kind of had and I was good. I was a good baseball player, but I had the wherewithal to know that probably wasn't going to be a pro athlete. I wasn't going to realize my dreams. So sports writing was something that I started at a very early age. In 8th grade, I started a little school newspaper, and then I went to high school, and our high school in Corrales High has a really renowned student newspaper. And I was lucky enough to get on it as a freshman. And I think I was our first 2-time editor my junior and senior years. And that kind of, I knew by high school that this is what I want to do. And right out of high school, I was hired by the Corrales daily newspaper, the Gazette Times. And it was really a momentous or a forming time in my life, because I was all set to be enrolled at U of O. But the sports editor from the Corrales paper, I had gotten to know them because I was interviewed for a baseball story. One of the reporters was interviewing me, and he's like, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" And I said, "I want to do what you do." And so they invited me down to the paper, and I ended up kind of studying what they do. And one night turned into another night. And pretty soon, by the end of my senior year in high school, I had been down at the Corvallis Gazette-Times watching how they put together the paper, watching the process of reporting, phone calls, all the deadline stuff. And I fell in love with it. Anyways, the sports editor, they had an opening, and he came down to school. It was, I think, the last day of my senior year in high school. And he came down, got me out of class, and said, "Do you want a job?" And I said, "Oh my God, well, I'm set to go to U of O here in a couple months." But I thought about it, and I ended up disenrolling from U of O and enrolled at Oregon State and took the job, and worked there for a while. Then I worked at the Oregonian part-time, and then I went to the Salem Statesman Journal, and then returned back to the Oregonian. And I never had really dreams of covering the Blazers. I was doing a bunch of different stuff for the Oregonian. I was covering the Seahawks, home and road. I did the University of Oregon football. And it was during my time covering U of O that there was an opening on the Blazer beat, because at the time, the two Blazer beat writers left for a different newspaper in town. The Portland Tribune started, and Kerry Eggers and Dwight Jaynes left. And so the Oregonian needs someone to fill in. And they thought I would do a good job. And at the time, I couldn't even name the starting five of the Blazers. And you talk about being raw and being thrown into the fire. I didn't know the NBA game very well. And that was a tough locker room. I mean, Rasheed Wallace, Bonzi Wells, Stacey Augmon. They were not easy guys, not friendly guys. And so I really got a wake-up call in how pro sports worked. And it was, I mean, I was nervous every day, I think, for my whole first season. And Mike Dunleavy was the coach, and he's very smart, and he tried, I think, to help me along a little bit. But I had no clue about pick and roll coverage and any of that stuff. So I just tried to kind of focus on what I do know, which is people. And I tried to tell their stories. And anyways, that's just kind of how I got into it. It was by accident that I got into the NBA. But I ended up having fun with it. And it's the biggest and best assignment in Portland. So I just kind of stuck with it and haven't been able to really shake it.
You've obviously been with the Blazers for you said 24 years. Was there a favorite era or like some most memorable moment from that time?
Oh, well, definitely the best time was during kind of the Renaissance, the Rip City revival, as I called it, with Brandon Roy, Marcus Aldridge, and Jarrett Jack, and Travis Outlaw. That was an extremely fun time. There was that one December where they won 13 consecutive games, and it was such a wonderful environment. The GM, Kevin Pritchard, the coach, Nate McMillan, and the players, it was all so new, and it was really like a family atmosphere. And I've never felt more embraced by a team. Like they kind of treated me not like one of their own, but there wasn't this divide between the team and the reporters that you see so often now, or not even a divide, but like a wariness. They treated me so well, and it was so fun. But then also the 2019 run to the Western Conference Finals was a blast. I loved that whole time. Oklahoma City series, the Denver series, and even the Golden State series where they had double-digit leads. That was a really special time. I'll always remember Dame walking off the court after Game 7 in Denver with his head in his arms, and you could just see and feel how much it meant to him. And I had been chronicling him so closely that year, and particularly in that playoffs. And so it was really touching to see how much that win meant for him. And then just, like Evan Turner was such a fun guy to cover. And, he played a big role in that Game 7, but that whole playoff run in 2019 was really special. And the fact that it came 1 year after such a gutting, demoralizing loss to the New Orleans Pelicans, I think made it even sweeter. And I think the players would even say that going through that heartache and that gut punch of getting swept by New Orleans made that Western Conference Finals run even sweeter. So those two times, the B. Roy era and the 2019 run were really special. And I don't know if I'll ever forget those.
Yeah, 2019 was like super special, even for just us fans. So being up close, I can't even imagine how crazy that must have been. Mike, do you want to take the next question?
Yeah, welcome, Jason.
Thank you.
We've talked about how it was very hard to build the same connections with the Blazers players during the pandemic. Did it get easier over time? And right now, as we stand right now, still on the pandemic, with kind of nearing the end, are things getting back closer to normal, or are there still some restrictions?
Yeah, good question. God, I hate Zoom. Zoom is just brutal for my job.
Thank you for putting you back
up. But in particular, the way I like to do my job, I like to get personal with these guys, and I need that face-to-face personal connection to reach them and to understand them and to build trust, to get them to open up. So it was very frustrating to have everything be so sterile and impersonal. And then also it was really frustrating, working for The Athletic. There's a lot of pressure on me to sell my product. I'm asking people to buy my product, what I write. And so I have to be different. There's a lot of, I can't be like everyone else and expect people to pay for my product when it's just the same as everyone else. So I have to have something different. And on Zoom, I would come with angles, and it was frustrating because it was out there for everyone. And so it was hard to differentiate my work from everyone else's, even though I was coming up with my own angles and all of that. So that's what was really frustrating. So it reached a point where I tried to just lean on my experience and my connections with the guys I'd covered before, the Dames, the CJs, Zach Collins, all those guys. I had their numbers, so I could just call them and do it. Nasir, Anthony, I could do my own stories without having it to be on Zoom. But it was, the new guys who I had no rapport with, that's where it became a little more difficult. But, probably in my career, one of the things I'm most proud of was I did a piece last year on Norm Powell when he first came to the Blazers. And, I'd never met him face to face. And yet I was able to establish enough of a connection to get him to open up and really, I feel, tell me his life story and allow me to speak to his family and his inner circle. And so I was really proud of that story because it was done in a pandemic era with Zoom and without having that personal connection. So it took a while for me because I was dealing with the frustrations and just, we're all creatures of habit, and just having to do the Zoom and having to change was difficult at first and frustrating. But, when you're in that situation, you have one or two ways to handle it. You can continue bitching and moaning about it, or you can do something to make it better. And so I decided, hey, I'm going to kind of take it into my own hands and start leaning on my relationships with players and reaching out to them and generating my own content. So that's how I handled it. But this year it's getting better. We're back at practice. Just got back from Blazers practice today, and today was probably the best practice we've been able to witness because Chauncey let us in while they were scrimmaging. So we got to see a lot of 5-on-5, and it was just cool to see that again. And so you can ask better questions. You can, have a better sense of what's going on and see what Chauncey's talking about as far as, picking up the pace and pushing the ball forward and not being so methodical. And so that was really fun, but it's still not the way it used to be. We can't just grab players and have a one-on-one. We have to be 6 feet away. So they have, they bring the coach or a player over, and then they have a table in front of him, so you can't get up next to him. Then they have it roped off 6 feet. So it's a little odd. It's not as personable. I like to sit next to a guy and have a conversation, but this makes it a little bit, it really reinforces that, hey, I'm interviewing you. And so it takes a little bit of that organic conversation out of the equation, but still it's huge that we're back in the gym, we're back face to face. And as of right now, I'm going to be back on the road, traveling to the games and getting that kind of access. So I'm kind of excited about that. And I'm really excited about covering the season.
Yeah, I mean, we're all extremely excited for what Billups is bringing to us, and from the stuff that you've put in your articles, it's all music to our ears. We're all excited to hear. It's like what he's saying is like the perfect things that I want to hear, at least for me personally. So with that being said, we haven't really experienced many coaching changes, at least. I mean, I started watching the Blazers when Nate McMillan was a coach, and within a year or 2 years, they had released McMillan and went with Stotts. So what can we expect? How easy of a transition do you think it's going to be? Do you see any issues that it could bring up? Because I mean, it's been a long time since we had a coaching change.
I mean, it's possible, but I don't see any issues after 1 week of practice. I think it's the exact opposite. I think everyone's in kind of a honeymoon stage right now where they're appreciating Chauncey's communication, the way he communicates. I think that if I was to pinpoint one thing about Chauncey after 1 week of training camp, it's that he's a master communicator. He has a way of reaching these guys, but also just a way of being very upfront about everything. Hey, this is what I expect out of you. You're probably not going to play very much this year, but I need you to be ready. Or, hey, I'm expecting you to elevate your game because I'm going to need you for this. He's very, very upfront about that. And he's not afraid to tell you what you don't want to hear. And I think that's important. I think the real interesting thing to watch is going to be how he coaches Dame and CJ, because Dame and CJ have only had one NBA coach in their career. and Stotts was very accommodating to them. That he built the system around them, and he gave them a very long leash. They could take bad shots. They could be lax on defense, and he was still going to play them 36, 38 minutes, still give them all that freedom that they wanted. And I don't think it's going to be quite as easy under Chauncey for Dame and CJ. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle his coaching. I think they're going to be fine because, Dame and CJ are highly coachable guys. I think they're of high character. They're smart. They get it. They realize when they mess up. And I think it's this human nature that if you're allowed to continue doing things that, or your bad habits, you're going to continue doing them. But if you have a guy there kind of hammering you about your bad habits, that's the way you change. And I think we'll see if they're able to change some of their bad habits. And I don't think it's anything egregious or terrible. I know everyone likes to get on their defense, and yeah, I do think both of them can play better defense, but I think CJ is better defensively than he gets credit for. And I think Dame can be very good on defense when he wants to, but it's about conserving his energy. But he has shown at key times that he can play very good defense. So it's going to be a matter of Chauncey being able to get that out of them more often. But I honestly, I don't see any issues coming with Chauncey and how he's going to coach those guys. I think it's highly possible that there'll be some guys on the fringe who aren't, wish they were playing more and disagree with his rotation or playing time, but that happens on every NBA team. So I really don't see anything being an issue so far.
Well, I mean, that's music to our ears because we have a great team right now, I feel, and I think Billups is going to just elevate us up. So I think that's going to be good for us, and I'm glad that you feel the same way. Fawad, go ahead if you want to go with the next question. Oh, no, go ahead.
Well, and another thing, I've got to say that it's been a long, long time since I have left the practice facility and felt as jazzed as I have this week. Just the way that Chauncey is running this, the way he communicates, the way he sees the game, the way he's able to articulate the game, it has been really invigorating for me because, as I said, I've been doing this 24 years. It can kind of get stale sometimes and be like, oh God, another training camp. Jeez, this is going to be brutal, and it has been the exact opposite of that. It's been, I am really enthused. And I think a lot of it has to do with Chauncey and his approach and his outlook. And so that has been, it's been really fun for me.
Yeah. For next, we saw your tweets and your articles that if you had to pick one player that really stood out this year on the first workout, this year you picked Nassir Little. We are extremely, extremely high on him. We've talked about him a lot in this podcast. We've covered his 30-point game. We really like him. And can you talk about a little from what you've seen and what you've heard on him, and what can we expect from Nassir this year?
Yeah, I actually, right before I hopped on with you guys, I posted another article on Nassir. This morning, the team picked up his 4th-year rookie option. So he's guaranteed $4.17 million next year. And it was kind of cool. He said this morning before practice, he was sitting on, they have these benches around around the court, and he was sitting on the bench watching film. And Neil Olshey approached him and said, I can't remember the exact words right now. You better be buying a nice dinner tonight, and something along those lines. And Nassir's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, well, you're $4 million richer. And then he told me, we picked up your option. And Nassir said, like, for real, it almost brought a tear to his eye. And he's like, I'm sitting here before practice about to cry, And so then what does he go out and do? As I told you guys today, they skirmish a ton. Nassir went out and had another standout practice. And Chauncey Billups was again gushing about Nassir Little after this scrimmage. So he has been, I don't want to say he's been the best player because of what I saw today in the scrimmage. I mean, CJ hit a couple really pretty shots. Dane was getting buckets left and right. Norman Powell looked really good on both ends. But Nassir was right there too. He had, I posted on Twitter, he scored in traffic on a fast break. But everyone is talking about Nassir because they can see the jump that he has made from last year. And, Chauncey today said, my goal is to be able to put him out there and put him on Kevin Durant, put him on LeBron James. I want to be able to have the confidence to do that and just kind of tell him, go wreak havoc on those guys and defend them. It's not all about scoring. He's going to have to be able to defend. And that's the thing I like about Nassir when he's talked about his summer and he's talked about his training camp. He brings up his defense. Like, I want to be the guy who guards the toughest opponent. And I think that's a wonderful mindset to have for a young guy, because so many young guys are conditioned to judge their performance by how many points they score, how many baskets they make. So I think that's good that he's kind of realizing that defense is going to be a way that I get on the court. Much like, Gary Trent, when he broke into the rotation, it was because of his defense. So that's going to be an interesting thing for Nassir to be watching with Nassir, is whether or not he can hang on the court against elite players from a defensive standpoint. But another interesting thing from today's practice that Chauncey brought up, Chauncey last year was an assistant coach with the Clippers. And at the end of last year, the Clippers had the second-year wing named Terrence Mann, who really blew up in the playoffs. I think he had 39 points in the game against the Jazz that catapulted them into the Western Conference Finals. And Chauncey said, this summer when I first met with Nassir, I planted that seed that you need to be like Terrence Mann was for us last year with the Clippers. Just be that guy who plays harder than anyone else out there on the floor and kind of makes loud plays. And so far, Nassir has taken that and he has been loud at this Blazers training camp. Now, whether or not he's going to be able to translate that starting Monday in their first exhibition game against Golden State, that's going to be his next step. His first thing was to show that, hey, I'm dedicated in the summer. I'm going to get my body right. I'm going to train right. He did that. Check. Okay, can you take that and translate that to training camp? Yes, he's done that. Check. The next box to check starts Monday with preseason. Can you do it in preseason? We'll see. And then the next one after that, obviously, is the regular season. So everything is trending right for Nassir. I don't want to say he's arrived yet, but he is certainly trending in the right direction. I mean, and keep in mind, this guy was the number one prospect in America in high school, the number one. Just struggled a little bit at North Carolina. Did the way the coach used them, fitting in, all that, slipped a little bit in the draft. that talent doesn't just vaporize and go away. So I think it's going to be really fun to watch him. And also, you always hear these things every year in training camp about how a guy has added muscle and lost weight and all this. You stand next to Nasir, he is completely different from a body standpoint. He's much slimmer, but he's got the bulk in his arms. He's stronger. And he says, I'm better conditioned than he ever has. So I think that's playing a part in this, and part of that was he hired a chef this summer. And so he has someone at his home making his meals, keeping his diet right. And, like Neil Olshey made that quip today to him that, hey, you better buy a nice dinner tonight. And so, he was asked, are you going to celebrate with a nice dinner tonight with your contract extension? He's like, nope, just going to have my chef cook me up something. So he's keeping his diet right. And you can tell by just looking at him. I think people will be able to see if they go to the Fan Fest tomorrow or if they go to Monday's preseason game, you'll be able to see when he's in his uniform that he looks different.
Yeah, even just in like the clips that have been posted to the Trailblazers Twitter account, like I definitely noticed that he looks slimmer than before.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also you've talked like a lot about how Chauncey's communication is something you're really impressed by. And I think you touched on it in your articles as well about how Nurk has been like super receptive to him and he's motivated for the season. Have you noticed a more improved Nurk in the training camp, or what do you expect from him? Anything?
Well, I think the main thing you can tell with Nurk is he's happy and he's engaged. And I think that's half the battle with Nurk.
Yeah, for sure.
Nurk is very emotional, and you always kind of know how Nurk feels. You can tell when he's down. You can tell when he's upset. And I think a lot of times that can kind of seep into his play. And he was very frustrated at the end of last season. But the biggest thing he wants is to be wanted. And Chauncey was immediate, in his introductory press conference. A lot got lost in that press conference because of how poorly run it was and them cutting off questions and all that. But beyond all that were some really key things that Chauncey said about Nurk that I want to get more out of him. I want him to have the ball more. I want him to get more paint touches. And, it's interesting that Nurk was listening. Nurk was in Bosnia on a hike, and he pulled that up, streamed it, and was listening to Chauncey say those things about him. And it's like his heart swelled, like, oh my God, a coach envisions me as a centerpiece to this team. He's going to put the ball in my hands more. He's going to play more aggressive defense. So Nurk gets back from his hike and immediately books a flight to Portland because he wants to meet face-to-face with Chauncey. And he did it. Came to Portland. They met face-to-face for 45 minutes, man-to-man, as Nurk says. And right there, their relationship solidified. They already knew each other casually because Chauncey lived in Denver while Nurk played there. And he would kind of come by and they would have these, informal conversations. They'd text every once in a while. But that man-to-man, face-to-face meeting, and this is what I want from you. This is what I envision for you. Nurk loved it. Nurk ate it up, and I think it fueled his training this summer. And that was the main thing that Chauncey was telling him was, I need you in tip-top shape, because that was a big thing last year at the start of the season. Nurk was not in shape, and it hurt his play, both ends of the court. So Nurk came to camp, was in shape. If I tell you about that scrimmage that we watched today, Friday, And for all the great things I did see, one thing that I didn't like was Nurk still wasn't finishing around the basket. You know how he has that propensity to kind of miss easy lay-ins, and there was at least 3 of those today that I saw. And, he's got to clean that up. If he's going to be the elite center that he hopes to be, he's got to clean up that stuff. And I just wish, I want to see Nurk dunk more. I want to see him just shove that thing through the hoop. There's none of these lay-ins and finger rolls and crap. You're huge, dude. Just dunk it. And I think somewhere along this, what's that?
Can I ask you a quick question on that?
Yeah.
Do you think it has to do with the injury that he had? Do you think it's a something mental that blocks him from wanting to do that?
No, I don't, because he's been like that since 2000, since he came to the Blazers. He's incredibly skilled, and he's got great touch and all that. And I think he kind of buys into that and wants to be elegant. And I just think it's a mindset thing. But I don't think it has anything to do with his injuries, his broken wrist, or, he talked a lot about having to deal with his thumb. He hurt his thumb in the Denver game and was on the injury report for 1 game, didn't miss any time. But he talked about this summer about his thumb, having to rehab his thumb and retrain how he shot. So maybe, but I don't think so. It looked like the same old stuff he'd been doing in years past.
So we'll wrap this up, but I want to ask you one last question, and it's kind of
It's already over?
I mean, if you want to keep going, we'll gladly keep going. Simons, obviously, he's up for an extension. Do you see us extending him? Because I kind of hope we do. He's so young and he's got such a huge upside. Do you think we try to extend him?
I don't know. I mean, my knee-jerk reaction would be yes, they want to extend him, but as with everything, it comes down to the money and whether or not it makes sense for both sides. I've been told that, so they have until October 18th to extend him, and they probably won't start discussions until about a week before that. And this is typically how Neil Olshey has done business with extensions. He doesn't like these long, drawn out back and forth. He likes to kind of narrow it down into a small window where they're forced to come to a yes or a no one way or another. And so I think about it probably a week. So we're probably about 10 days away before they start touching base and talking, money and years and all that kind of stuff. But look, everyone knows how high Neil Olshey is on Anthony Simons. He's probably a little overhyped early in his career, but you can start to see what they saw in Anthony at a young age. And that's another thing, actually, from today's scrimmage. Ant was running point guard and being a true point guard. And he had a couple really nice passes. And one in particular was an interior bounce pass to Robert Covington that Covington finished. And that was something that I haven't seen from Ant. I haven't seen him thread a pass in traffic and look for a teammate like that. And so that was something that literally raised my eyebrows as I was watching them scrimmage, oh, I haven't seen that from Ant. And, he talked about that to me about last year. Sure, he ran some point guard while CJ was nursing his broken foot, but he never felt like he had the reins to really run free. That he was always told, here, run this play, which is basically dump it down into the post and then clear out, And so he is really looking for the opportunity to decide if hey, if I make the pass, or be aggressive and take my shot, and really run the team. And I saw a little bit of that today in the scrimmage, and it was really fun to see, because I think we've become so conditioned to him just as a 3-point shooter, and drifting around outside the 3-point arc. And today he was in the paint, penetrating, coming off screens, and it was a completely new look in how Anthony played, and it was fun to see. So, but back to your original question, I think they're very high on Anthony. Whether or not how the Blazers see it and how his agent sees it is from a financial aspect, I don't know. I don't know what figures they're talking about, but we'll see. We'll see if I think if they don't, it's not an indication that they're not high on Ant.
Do you think so if they don't extend him, do you think we'll look to not trade him, but maybe like hear out offers at the deadline? Because if he has a good season, then we're gonna have to pay him a lot of money as well, and then that's another guard that we have on our payroll. So what do you think? Are we still planning on keeping him long term, or are they keeping their ears open for offers?
Well, I mean, that's an awfully huge hypothetical, and
Yeah.
it would depend, if it means getting, I don't know, throw any top name. If it meant getting Jimmy Butler, I think the Blazers would part with Anthony Simons, but I don't think they're looking to trade him. And I don't think people understand that Neil is always going to make a move if it makes the Blazers better. And I think especially now with how much is being made out of Dame's urgency to win and win big now, Neil wants to win big and win big now too. Neil's got an ego. Neil's a competitor. He wants this just as bad as anyone. And so if he sees an opportunity that's going to make this team better, he's going to pull the trigger. But he's not going to mortgage the future. He's not going to do anything that's not sensible from a financial standpoint or from a long-term standpoint. So it's just so hard for me to talk about hypotheticals, because it depends, what player you're talking about and giving him up and all that. I don't think anyone on this roster is untradeable outside of Dame.
Yeah, and it was part of me didn't want to ask the question because it is a hypothetical, but I think Simons could be a good piece to have. So I felt like if you had a thought on him being extended or not, it'd be a good question to ask. But it is tough with a hypothetical. It is hard to answer those type of questions. So, I mean, with that, first off, once again, I want to say thank you for coming on the podcast and talking with us. Truly, thank you. Everybody that's listening, if you aren't already, you need to go to The Athletic and you need to subscribe. And I believe right now they're having like a special going for it right now, right?
I think it's 50% off until I want to say October 20th, maybe.
So definitely, if you guys are not already, you need to get in and do it, because not only does Jason do a good job on the Blazers, it's just what he puts in there. There's so much detail to it that you don't even think about until you actually read these articles.
It's unique.
Very, very unique.
No, I appreciate that, guys. And look, people, it's not just Blazer coverage. You get all 30 teams in every sport: the NFL, NHL, Major League Baseball, college football. We have some of the best writers in America, and we cover the heck out of all these teams, all these leagues, and you get it. It's really cheap, and I think you'll find it's worth it. It's actually too much to read. I think it can be overwhelming, but if you have your team like I'm a Steelers fan, I'm an Angels fan, and I love being able to follow those teams through our writers. So that's my sales pitch. But I will promise you, I will try to give you the most in-depth and I don't know, human stories. My goal is for you guys to look at these guys more than just a jersey and more than just stats and a guy you see on TV. I want you to feel like you know them. I want you to feel like you know who likes who on the team and how they interact, and have a sense of what this team is about. So I'm excited to find out those little things about this team and share them with everyone. And if you subscribe, you'll be able to share in that experience.
Yeah,
And
we just
I
saw you-
highly suggest it.
Yeah, we just saw that your article today, the new segment, like quick and roll, that seemed really interesting. So that's another bonus for. Seems like it'll be regular content behind the scenes.
Yeah, I hope to do that once a week. We'll see. The season's a grind, but that's my goal. I want it to have the feel of my Behind the Locker Room series. The old time readers will remember that. It was back in the Brandon Roy era, and I would kind of chronicle what happened in the locker room, what kind of conversations they had, what scenes were developing, like the time that Brandon and Travis Outlaw tried to ambush Greg Oden and stuff him in a garbage can, but instead Oden took both of them, lifted them, and put them in the garbage can, and stuff like that you can't write a story about it, but it's a cool scene, and I think people feel like they're closer to the team when they are able to experience that stuff. So I'm hoping to do that with this year's team. And the first one was I kind of chronicles week with the Blazers, and shows how he kind of likes to compete with the players. Anthony Simons beat him in this one game where you have to finish on a basket, and Chauncey said, "There's no way you'll beat me," and Anthony ended up crushing him. And Ben McLemore shooting half quarters and couldn't get it in, and Chauncey kind of flipped him some crap, and the next shot he went and swished it. But then also the kind of explains Chauncey's core values and what he wants to instill in this team. So anyways, it's just kind of a week's worth of notes that I observed and talked to these guys about. And I hope to do it throughout the season.
And I read it already, and it's like you said, it's like a backstage, like you get to see what they're actually like, and it's so enjoyable to read and to see players other than just on the court basketball players. So I thank you again, Jason, so much for joining. We all had a blast. I'm gonna speak for everybody. I know everyone had a good time talking to you.
Right on.
For sure.
Thanks for
Let's
coming.
do it again, huh?
Hey,
We'd love to.
all right.
I'm gonna hold you.
But
to
we
Yeah.
got Blazer basketball coming up pretty soon. I think it's 3 days away.
Monday, yeah.
So we got Blazer basketball soon. And once again, Jason, just thanks for coming. We appreciate it so much. And as always, guys, Rip City, baby.
All right. We'll see you guys.